Minimalists.
Any advice I haven't asked for is bad advice.
Woo! That's where I wanted to start. We're an hour plus into the podcast, and we're just getting started. That was the intro, y'all. All right, so
Any advice I haven't asked for is bad advice.
So let's talk about that. That's a rewording almost of what you said. All advice is flawed advice, which I think is a great maxim. I have that essay here. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's about the advice epidemic. And what Lisa's really saying is, hey, I didn't ask for your advice, but we are so caught up in giving it, right? So the beginning of this essay starts out like this. The urge to convince others is overwhelming. On the surface, it appears virtuous to help, to instruct, to coach, to guide, to motivate. Giving advice gives the impression of nobility, as if we have an obligation to ameliorate the plight of the world, to assist people headed the wrong way, to point them in the right direction. We are all middlemen in the middle of a self-help epidemic. Just look at social media. Overnight experts espousing advice. You should wake up early. You shouldn't eat that. You should embrace change. You shouldn't get anxious. You should change your habits. You shouldn't wear socks with sandals. So here's the thing.
Except for the last piece of advice.
Yeah, that one's pretty good, actually. Let's be honest. Although all the cool kids now are wearing socks with sandals, I think.
Dude, they are. I'm just teasing.
And so here's the thing. What, Lisa, you're saying is, yeah, it's not appropriate to tell other people to try to convince them. We hate being convinced. And when you look at the most stereotypical examples of that, the used car salesman or the telemarketer, or when you're walking through a mall years ago, I remember the contracts we used to have to sign when I did leases at malls. When we lease a kiosk, there's a clause in those contracts because of the obnoxious salespeople. It's called a no barking clause. Do you know what that means? So when you're walking past like a T-Mobile kiosk at the Dayton Mall.
Hey, look, can I give you this pamphlet?
What kind of cell phone you have?
Right.
That's barking.
That's barking.
Yeah, and so they have a whole clause in there because people were getting turned off, and they didn't want to keep walking through the mall because people were trying to convince them.
They're getting barked at.
That is the pandemic that preceded the pandemic we're in now. It's the advice pandemic.
I was looking up quotes on bad advice, and I have to paraphrase it because I can't remember it directly, but it said something along the lines of, most people are dissatisfied with their decisions because they take their advice from salespeople.
That's good.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy this video? If so, you can listen to full episodes of the Minimalists private podcast, available exclusively on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalists today.